Hello, I'm Kaitlin Dupuis. I'm a graduating resident in the Department of Family Practice here at UBC. I'm at the end of the 2 years that you're about to embark on. These past 2 years have been filled with amazing experiences, from delivering a baby to providing end-of-life care. Needless to say, we know you're very anxious to get to work helping people as new MDs. But with this fantastic opportunity, there will be times that you'll be challenged. You'll be challenged by patients, staff, your fellow colleagues, and most importantly, you'll be challenged by your own expectations of yourself.
The time during my residency when I most found my resilience to be challenged was during my rural rotation. There were a lot of different factors that came into play that caused this to happen. There was geographic isolation, there was social isolation, I didn't have any friends there, and there were heavy expectations from my preceptors. They weren't even aware that the expectations were different than what I was used to. And in fact, I wasn't aware at the time that it was taking a toll on my well-being.
I was in a small program where we were expected to take a lot of responsibility for an entire hospital of admitted patients at night. And I definitely remember the trepidation that came with that call, which I would do almost weekly.
For me, in July of R1, you feel personally responsible for things happening to patients that, really, aren't your responsibility. And you have the perspective at the end of your training to realize that.
I think any situation where you're asked to take on more responsibility than you've previously had is a little bit scary for new residents. In particular, my family came to visit me from Ontario in the first month that I was a new resident in BC, and they made this wonderful meal right before one of my calls, and I just couldn't eat it. I just was so nervous about the upcoming night and how it was going to go that I think that there's a real physical manifestation of anxiety that you also struggle with sometimes.
I remember being on call in July of R1, and there was a patient who was very, very, very sick, and I spent most of the weekend dealing with this person, but I didn't have the perspective to realize that it was not my care that was causing the problem, right? That this person had a problem that was unrelated to the care that I was providing. And so I kept on sort of running through my head of, what had I done that was wrong, right? And you don't have that perspective to realize that sometimes people get sicker and die, and you did your best, and there was nothing you can do to stop that from happening necessarily, right?
Not really anybody's looking out for you except for yourself. So I find that kind of just continually always being expected, having things expected of you, working through it. That's been kind of what's been wearing down on me with resilience.
I'd had many sleepless nights and a lot of expectations and not a lot of support from the preceptors there. Some of the things that I found were particularly difficult were there was no individual preceptor to review with, and I felt like I was busy chasing people down and trying to find some learning as opposed to feeling like a valued member of the team and as if my education was a priority. And at the end of the day, this really took a toll on me.
I felt that maybe there was something I could have done better, or maybe if I just knew more, I could have adequately diagnosed this person and I could have treated them. And so I found that really challenging in terms of that doubt about what I was doing sort of crept into doubt about, is this the right profession for me? Like what was I thinking? Why did I go to medical school and that sort of stuff, right?
Residency can be challenging. We're in a profession where our main goal is to take care of others. But first, we have to take care of ourselves.
Well, residency is a time of transition, going in 2 short years from being a medical student to a practicing physician. And you're in situations where you're under a lot of stress, lots of change, new rotations, new challenges. And if you're not healthy, it's really hard for you to manage well throughout a residency program.
When one becomes a practicing physician, it's even more intense in terms of the pressures that one experiences. And if you don't take care of yourself as a doctor, then you can't take care of your patients.
Your tank needs to be full. You need to feel a sense of health, not only for yourself, but for the people around you, not only physically, but also emotionally. So I think it's absolutely critical that residents pay attention and programs pay attention to aspects that can compromise the health and resilience of all residents.
If you don't know your limits as a family doctor, if you don't know the limits beyond which you start to suffer burnout or suffer the consequences of the anxiety and the stresses of the real life of day-to-day practice, then you're going to do a disservice to your patients, not only to yourself.
As you can see, the concept of self-care and resilience are crucial to a career in medicine and are issues that residents continue to explore throughout their training. In fact, they'll serve you well throughout the rest of your life.
I am a mother of a toddler. To be actually away from a child whom you're just starting to toilet train or, to get to sleep in a certain routine, it's tougher.
I do have a family. I've got a wife and 3 kids at home, so I know some of the residents will find camaraderie between each other will be helpful. I find that home is calling often because I'm not there very much.
Residency is very challenging, so having that family support in place is a huge help.
I look at the family actually more as a balance for me. There's work and there's family, and they're both required to be there. It's something I need to keep.
I found that having a network of peers was an outstanding support throughout residency, and having residents who were in the same situation that I was, who could empathize with me and listen to and understand the challenges I was going through, was a huge step in improving my residency well-being.
I think that the ability to discuss your own challenges with trainees that are at a similar stage is really important, because occasionally the feeling of being overwhelmed happens when you're surrounded only by people who know lots more than you and that are sometimes specialists in their field or subspecialists, and you can't expect for yourself that your knowledge is going to be at that place.
It took me a couple of months to figure out that all the other residents felt the same way too. It took me until we actually formally sit down at my program and go over our challenging cases from on-call. And so, I presented my case and I cried. And then someone else presented their case and I think they cried too. And so then you start to realize that everybody has the same feelings. Everybody puts it inside. Everybody feels in doubt about the work they do and uncertain whether they're good enough to do it. And that's a part of the experience, right? And so that, once I realized that, it was better.
When there's preceptors with high expectations, asking them to reduce those expectations can be quite a challenge. So I found that learning what my rights as a resident were in my collective agreement and learning when to say no in the best interest of my education really had a positive impact for my well-being as a resident.
We asked the residents to look back on their residency, and here were some of the tips that they wanted to share with you.
So one tip I would give to the incoming R1s I found very, very useful was to come in early and actually have a nap. So I found that, at home things tend to get busy. And when you actually come in early and have even a 15-minute nap before your shift begins, then that's really, really helpful because you come in refreshed.
To continue having my resilience on top of that, I kind of need to find something for myself. And so for myself, music is a big part. I've been a musician for years, continue to play. So that's been one thing. When I have time, I play music. And then kind of my nerdy side comes out when I like to make model airplanes, remote control airplanes. I build airplanes out of wood, put them together, put motors in them and fly them. And I find that horribly satisfying. And that's been kind of my escape.
The thing that I found most helpful was sort of some of the mindfulness type stuff that I learned totally accidentally when I started doing yoga, which I started in med school because I was too injured to do anything else. And it seems sort of goofy because they'd be like, okay, well, here's the magnetic fields in your hands and you can feel, okay, whatever. But you unconsciously learn a lot about how to manage what's going on inside your head, right? And so I would be having a bad day in residency and I would say, okay, you just have to be a resident for today. And I was having a really bad day in residency. I say, okay, you just have to be a resident for an hour. You have to be a resident to see the last patient or the next patient. And so that would sort of just help to get you over those little bumps where you felt overwhelmed by what you're doing.
You don't really know what you can do until you try it, and lots of times you have more anxiety about these situations than you actually need to have, right? Because the anxiety is really wasted energy, and it would be nice to think that we can all focus directly on the task at hand and not worry, but that's not really reality. However, just reminding yourself out loud by saying, people have gone before me I'm in fact not the first person to do this, and they've all felt similarly to me.
Here's a summary of some other useful tips. Get a family doctor. Keep track of your vacation days. Make sure you use all 20 that you're given in your academic year. Take advantage of our extended health benefits that are offered through our contract with Vancouver Coastal Health, which includes coverage for many services like dental care, massage therapy, and prescription eyeglasses. The Physician Health Program and Employee and Family Assistance Program offers a free consultation and access to free personal counseling. Make sure you program your phone now with these numbers: your site director, your site coordinator, your main preceptors, fellow residents, your local roadside assistance number, the Physician Health Program, your hospital switchboard, and hospital security services. Lastly, join a group in your community, preferably not related to medicine, one that will benefit both your emotional and physical health. The UBC Department of Family Practice has a group that's unique to medical schools across the country. This group is called the Resident Resilience Subcommittee.
Unfortunately, some 3 years ago, a resident in the UBC Family Practice program committed suicide. There was an effort in the reflective review and debriefing of that very unfortunate event to look for opportunities for both the site that was involved and the department, and for that matter the University and Faculty of Medicine. So we're providing information to residents and to site directors and to site coordinators and to the department as a whole that might red flag and make people more aware and alert of the need for resident wellness today. And so we have some deliverables that are very obvious that residents receive by email and they're discussed during their academic times. And then there are other deliverables that are less obvious to the residents, but they are some educational materials for faculty, staff, site coordinators that would alert them to early warning signs and other things that might make us more effective in being attentive to resident wellness and resilience.
Shifting the medical culture towards prioritizing physician wellness, it's a work in progress. But as part of the UBC Department of Family Practice, you're at the leading edge of this culture change. From all of us to all of you, welcome. So Scott, what are some things that have impacted your resilience throughout your residency training? Scott.
What's that?
What we had talked about before. So what has impacted your ability to engage in self-care throughout residency?
Angry Birds is killing me.
Okay. Scott, it's what we had talked about before. You remember we're gonna film and those questions that I had wanted you to answer. Are you able to do that, or?
Do you have an app for whatever you're talking about? Because I'm like kind of in the middle of something.
You know what? I think we're good. We'll just cut, and there's some other people that we can ask.